everyone, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive. Today we're tackling a transcript all about improving spoken English at home.
15 tips, to be exact.
Yeah.
Sounds like a lot.
It does. But don't worry, we're not going to bore you with every single one. We'll pick out the most interesting ones. And hopefully give you some you can actually use. Whether you're, just starting out or you're already pretty comfortable with English, I think there's something in here for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
What's interesting is they really approach it from all angles,
Yeah.
Like everyday habits you can build, some more focused practice techniques, and then some just for fun.
Yeah, it's like a choose your own adventure for better English speaking. So let's jump right in. The transcript starts off with something that might sound a little silly, talking to yourself.
Yeah, I was going to say, now before you worry about what your neighbors are going to think.
Yeah, right. It's not about having full-blown conversations with the lamp. It's more about creating a safe space to practice without feeling self-conscious. Like, I actually do this all the time when I'm cooking.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I'll be like, okay, so now we're going to chop the onions carefully, of course. Don't want any tears. Just narrating the whole process. It feels kind of ridiculous, but it helps me get comfortable with forming sentences on the fly.
I can see that. Like, you're not worried about making mistakes or, sounding awkward.
Exactly. And sometimes it even helps me avoid kitchen disasters. Bonus. But seriously, it's all about building that fluency and confidence. You're basically training your brain to think in English more spontaneously.
Makes sense. Like a mental rehearsal for real-life conversations, right?
Exactly. Okay, so next up, we have another classic tip. Watching English movies and TV shows. But the transcript goes a bit deeper than just passive viewing.
Oh yeah, for sure. If you really want to make the most of it, you got to be actively engaged. So first and foremost, pick stuff you genuinely enjoy. Because let's face it, if you're bored out of your mind, you're not going to absorb anything.
So true. I pick up tons of new phrases just from watching my favorite comedies. Sometimes I even pause and rewind to try and figure out how they used a certain word.
That's a pro move right there.
Yeah.
You're turning your leisure time into a learning opportunity.
Yeah.
Not just watching, you're dissecting the language,
Exactly. Okay, and speaking of interactive learning, the transcript also suggests practicing with voice assistants. Now this one, I've definitely got some experience with.
Oh, I bet. Tell me you haven't had a full-blown argument with Siri at least once.
Well, maybe not a full-blown argument, but let's just say there have been some frustrating moments. When you're repeating yourself over and over again or trying to figure out how to phrase something so that Siri actually understands.
Right.
But you know what? Even those moments, those struggles, are actually really valuable.
Oh, absolutely. You're forced to really articulate clearly. Think about your sentence structure, even adjust your pronunciation. It's like a mini immersion experience, right, in your own living room.
Exactly. So embrace those Siri struggles, folks. They're secretly making you better at English. Okay, now this next tip might seem a little old school, but it's still incredibly relevant. Reading aloud. Remember doing that back in school?
Oh yeah, I do. And it's amazing for improving not just your spoken English, but also your reading comprehension. Think about it. You're forced to slow down, pronounce each word carefully, and really absorb the meaning.
It's like a double whammy of language learning. Plus, it helps with intonation, pacing, all those things that make your speaking sound more natural. And the best part is you can choose anything you enjoy reading, from novels to, even those instruction manuals we all love to hate.
Oh, for sure. Whatever keeps you engaged, right?
Right. Speaking of honing those pronunciation skills, the transcript also talks about shadowing native speakers. Now, this one might sound a bit intimidating, but it's actually really fun.
Oh yeah, I love this technique. It's like you're an actor stepping into a role. You're trying to mimic the speaker's every inflection, rhythm, even their accent.
Ooh, I like that analogy. So you're basically training your ear and your tongue to reproduce the natural sounds of spoken English.
Precisely. And the transcript has a great suggestion. Find short clips of speakers you admire. Instead of trying to shadow a whole movie, focus on a single quote or a scene from your favorite show. Break it down sentence by sentence. Really focus on those nuances.
Yeah, that makes it much more manageable. Okay, before we move on to the next set of tips, let's talk about a technique that can be a little daunting, but incredibly valuable. Recording yourself speaking. I know. It can be cringy, but trust me, it's like having a personal speech coach available 24/7.
Yeah, it can be a bit awkward at first,
Hmm.
But when you listen back, you can really pinpoint those areas where you might be stumbling, rushing your words, or mispronouncing things. It's like holding a mirror up to your spoken English.
Exactly. And while it might be a little painful at times, it's honestly the best way to identify those areas where you can improve. It's all about self-awareness, right?
Right. And remember, you don't have to share those recordings with anyone. It's your own personal feedback loop.
Now, the transcript also highlights the importance of focusing on pronunciation and accent reduction, even for native English speakers. And it even mentions the word enunciation, which, to be honest, I've always been a little fuzzy on.
Oh yeah, enunciation. It's basically the art of speaking clearly and distinctly, making sure each syllable is pronounced properly so that your words are easily understood. And, even native speakers can benefit from this. We all have those words we tend to mumble or mispronounce, right?
Totally. I have a few that trip me up every time, no matter how hard I try. But I guess the key is to be aware of those tricky spots and make a conscious effort.
Exactly. And the good news is there are tons of resources to help you out. Online dictionaries with audio pronunciations, phonetics apps, you name it.
Okay, and speaking of fun ways to practice, the transcript brings up tongue twisters. Now, these might seem a little childish, but they're actually great for targeting clarity and control.
Oh, I love tongue twisters. Shall we give one a go?
Sure, why not? How about red leather, yellow leather?
Red leather, yellow leather. See, it's harder than it sounds.
I know, right?
But that's the whole point. They force you to slow down, pay attention to each sound, really work those tongue muscles.
It's like a workout for your mouth, and it helps with those tricky consonant clusters that can trip us up in everyday speech.
For sure. Okay, so we've covered quite a few tips in this everyday habits category. Let's move on to the next theme. Level up with focus techniques. And the first one up is all about using language learning apps. Now, the transcript specifically mentions Duolingo, Babbel, and HelloTalk, which are all great options. But it's important to remember that not all apps are created equal.
Right, it's like finding the right pair of shoes. You gotta try a few on to see what fits your learning style and goals. Some focus on vocabulary, others on grammar, and some have interactive speaking exercises, which is obviously perfect for what we're talking about today.
Exactly. Do your research and find one that aligns with your needs. Think about what you really want to work on, pronunciation, fluency, vocabulary, and choose an app that caters to those areas.
And speaking of connecting with others, the transcript also suggests engaging in online language exchanges. This sounds like such a cool idea.
It is. It's a fantastic way to immerse yourself in the language and culture while also helping someone else learn your language. Win-win, right?
Totally. I love the idea of having a conversation partner from another country. It not only helped me practice my spoken English, but also expose me to new perspectives and ways of thinking.
Exactly. Plus, knowing that someone's relying on you to practice their target language can be a great motivator to stay consistent with your own learning.
The next tip is about creating an English-only environment, even if you don't live in an English-speaking country. Now, this might sound extreme, but it's all about maximizing your exposure to the language.
Right. We're constantly surrounded by information and entertainment, so why not leverage that to our advantage?
Exactly. The transcript suggests simple things like changing your phone settings to English, following English-speaking social media accounts, or even listening to English podcasts while you commute.
Yeah, it's about creating those little pockets of immersion throughout your day.
I can see how that constant exposure would really help solidify vocabulary and grammar rules, in a more subconscious way, like you're almost learning by osmosis. Okay, so we've talked about apps, language exchanges, and creating that immersive environment. The final tip in this level up section is about participating in online communities where English is the primary language.
Now, this builds on that idea of immersion, but takes it a step further by encouraging active participation.
Right, so instead of just passively consuming content, you're actually engaging in conversations, sharing your thoughts and opinions. The transcript specifically mentions Reddit and Quora, which makes sense.
Oh yeah, those are great platforms for this. You can find a community dedicated to pretty much any interest you can imagine.
Exactly. And the beauty of these online communities is that you can connect with people from all over the world, each with their own unique perspective on the English language.
Right, it's not just about learning the correct way to speak, but also understanding those nuances and variations that make English such a rich and diverse language.
All right, we've covered some really interesting and actionable tips in this level up section. Before we move on to the final theme, which focuses on, you guessed it, making language learning fun, let's take a moment to reflect. Out of all the tips we've discussed so far, what's resonating with you? What's sparking your interest? What are you excited to try?
We'd love to hear your thoughts. Share your takeaways with us on social media using #TheDeepDive.
Yeah.
It's been fun, unpacking all these tips. I'm kind of surprised by how these everyday things can actually make a big difference in your English fluency.
I know, right? It's all about finding those sneaky ways to practice without it feeling like work. But, as much as I love those casual approaches, I'm also kind of drawn to the more focused techniques. It's like, having a toolkit for specific areas you want to work on. And speaking of toolkits, the transcript's next theme is connect and immerse yourself, which is where things get really interesting.
Totally. This is where we go beyond individual practice and into, actually using English in the real world, which is what it's all about. And the first tip in this category is all about learning common phrases and idioms. This is where things can get a little tricky, but also super rewarding.
Oh, yeah. Idioms are like the spice of the English language. They add that color, that personality, that makes you sound like a native speaker. But I'll admit, they can be confusing at first. Like, who came up with raining cats and dogs?
Right. It makes absolutely no sense if you try to translate it literally.
None.
But that's the beauty of idioms, right? They represent a deeper cultural understanding. And the transcript gives some good examples to start with, like piece of cake or break a leg.
Learning these idioms is like unlocking a secret code. Suddenly, you're not just understanding the words, but you're also getting the cultural context.
Exactly. And that can make a huge difference in, how fluent you sound. When you can just naturally sprinkle in those idioms, it shows you're not just speaking the language, you're thinking in it too.
Okay, so we've got idioms covered. The next tip builds on that idea of connecting with others, encouraging participation in online communities. We touched on this before, but the transcript really goes into detail here.
Yeah, what's cool about online communities is they give you this unique chance to practice in a low-pressure setting, It's not about being perfect, it's about just engaging in discussions, sharing your thoughts, learning from others.
And the transcript specifically mentions Reddit and Quora, which makes sense. I mean, you can find a group dedicated to pretty much any interest you can think of.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Cooking, movies, travel, whatever you're into. And that's what makes them so valuable for language learners. You're not just practicing your English, you're also, expanding your knowledge, connecting with people who share your passions.
It's like killing two birds with one stone. Or should I say, hitting two birds with one stone. See? I'm already picking up those idioms.
There you go. That's the kind of progress you can expect.
Yeah.
It's a very natural way to learn and grow, both linguistically and, intellectually. Okay, the final tip in this connect and immerse yourself theme is all about setting goals and tracking your progress. Now, this might not sound as fun as, singing karaoke or joining a Reddit debate, but it's crucial for staying motivated and actually seeing those results.
Yeah, it's easy to get caught up in the day-to-day and lose sight of the bigger picture. That's why setting goals is so important. It gives you something to aim for, a way to measure your progress, and a reason to celebrate those little wins along the way.
Right. The transcript really emphasizes setting realistic goals. It's not about becoming fluent overnight. It's about those small, incremental improvements over time.
Like learning 5 new words a week, or having a 5-minute conversation without, stumbling over your words, or watching a whole movie in English with no subtitles.
Exactly. And don't underestimate the power of tracking your progress. Whether you use an app, a journal, or just a simple spreadsheet, having that visual representation can be incredibly motivating.
Speaking of motivation, let's not forget about the importance of having fun along the way. Learning a language shouldn't feel like a chore, it should be enjoyable. And that brings us to the final theme from the transcript. Have fun with it.
Yeah, this is all about finding those activities that make you forget you're even learning. And the first tip in this category is a classic singing along to English songs.
Who doesn't love a good karaoke session? But beyond the fun factor, singing in English has some serious learning benefits. You're practicing pronunciation, rhythm, intonation, vocabulary, all while belting out your favorite tunes.
It's like the ultimate stealth learning technique. And the transcript even suggests choosing artists who are known for their clear enunciation and slower tempos. Like Adele or Ed Sheeran. It's like having a personal vocal coach guiding you through each word.
Yeah, that's a great tip, especially for beginners. It's a fun way to train your ear and your tongue.
Exactly. And the more you sing along, the more those words and phrases will stick in your memory. Okay, we talked about singing. Now, let's revisit another fun and effective technique we mentioned earlier. Tongue twisters.
Oh yes, those delightful little phrases that tie your tongue in knots.
They might seem silly, but they're so good for improving diction and articulation.
We already tried red leather, yellow leather, but there are tons of others out there. And the transcript encourages listeners to find ones that target those specific sounds they find challenging.
Yeah, it's like a personalized pronunciation workout. You can focus on those tricky consonant clusters, vowel sounds, anything that trips you up. And the best part is you can practice them anywhere, anytime.
In the shower, in the car, waiting in line at the grocery store, it's like sneaking in a little language workout wherever you go.
Exactly. All right, so we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. Everything from everyday habits to focused techniques and those all-important fun activities. And what's become clear is that there's no one-size-fits-all approach to improving your spoken English.
Right. It's all about finding what works for you, what sparks your interest, what fits into your lifestyle.
And the cool thing about this transcript is that it gives you a whole menu of options to choose from. You can pick and choose the tips that resonate with you, experiment with different approaches.
And remember, it's not about being perfect. It's about progress, perseverance, and most importantly, having fun along the way.
So as we wrap up this part of the deep dive, we want to leave you with a question. What's one small step you can take today to improve your spoken English? What's one tip from this transcript that you're excited to try? Share your thoughts with us on social media using #TheDeepDive.
It's amazing how many, fun ways there are to practice English, right? We've talked about singing, tongue twisters, we've got this whole arsenal of secret language learning weapons.
And love that. And the great thing is they really tap into different learning styles. Some people are auditory learners, others are visual, some learn best by doing. These tips have something for everyone.
Exactly. It's about finding what clicks for you. And speaking of things that click, the transcript has one more tip in this have fun with it category, and I think it's a good one. It's all about using humor and wordplay.
Oh yeah, the art of making people laugh while secretly leveling up your English skills.
Right. Now, this might sound a bit advanced, but it's something you can start playing with at any level. The transcript suggests, paying attention to comedians, how they use language, how they play with words, their delivery. It's like a masterclass in comedic timing and just linguistic creativity.
And humor is such a powerful tool for connection, right?
Yeah.
When you can make someone laugh, you're instantly building that rapport, making the whole learning process more relaxed and enjoyable.
Totally. Laughter breaks down those barriers, makes it less intimidating. Plus, when you're having fun, you're way more likely to remember what you've learned.
Absolutely. So, embrace those puns, the silly jokes, those unexpected phrases. You'll be entertaining yourself and others and sharpening your linguistic skills.
All right, so there you have it. We've explored all 15 tips from our transcript on improving spoken English at home. We covered everything from those everyday habits to those focused techniques to the fun stuff.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey. Hopefully our listeners are feeling inspired and ready to put some of these into practice.
I know I am. And one thing that's really stood out to me is this idea that improving spoken English isn't just about the grammar rules or the vocabulary. It's about connecting with people, expressing yourself, and enjoying the process.
I love that. It's about seeing language as a tool for communication, for creativity, for building those bridges across cultures. And remember, it's a journey, not a destination.
So true. There will be challenges, there will be times when you get frustrated, but there will also be those amazing breakthroughs.
Right. Celebrate those wins, no matter how small they seem. And remember, we're all in this together, learning from each other.
So we want to hear from you. What resonated with you? What are you going to try? Share your thoughts, your experiences on social media. Use #TheDeepDive.
We're excited to hear your stories. Until next time, keep practicing, keep learning, and most importantly, keep having fun with English.
That's it for this deep dive. See you next time.